Ladies and gentlemen, in this corner, grappling Greg Gianforte. And in the other corner, it's battling Ben Jacobs of the Guardian newspaper.
What a crazy evening yesterday.
Lord, I can't even believe what happened last night.
So if you're just joining us, first off, this is Talkback. By the way, CNN is listening in on this Talkback program because they want to hear the reactions of Montanans.
Right.
And since apparently we're the only place in Montana where people actually can call in and give their reactions, I want to hear from two types of people. I want to hear from people that heard about the attack yesterday and are still voting for Greg.
Right.
And I want to hear from people who have changed their minds about Greg Gianforte because of this attack.
Right.
Give us a call at 721-1290.
Okay, we have 4 lines. One of them's ringing right now. We want to get all 4 of them going here. As John mentioned, we did get a call earlier this morning from CNN Headline News, and they are definitely listening online to this program. They want to find out what real Montanans are thinking, and that's you, folks. So we value your opinion. Want to see what you're thinking out there. 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. If the lines are full, it looks like they are. The lines are almost full right now. And we will be also accepting your comments on our Facebook page. So let's get started and jump right in there this morning. Pete, you are up first on Talkback. Hi, go ahead.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning, Pete. You're on. Go ahead.
My question, and you and John are both a journalist. My understanding, it was a private party. The people that were invited were volunteers. This was not a public event.
Well, actually, there were journalists there. There were journalists from Fox News.
It's not private.
Yeah, you could get in from... So my understanding is, as yours, that the individual that ended up getting attacked was not invited into the room.
Right.
Yes. Right. So they were in a private room. And he came in uninvited. Now, the response is different, but also the arrogance is very present. I'm a journalist, so I can go anywhere I want and hell with everybody else.
So are you saying that Mr. Gianforte had a right to take him on? He had a right
to decline the interview.
Well, he did.
And ask him to leave the room like he did.
He did.
He hung up in a very forceful manner, though.
Yes, he certainly did.
Yeah, I wouldn't have done that to the guy. I would have just kicked him in the ass.
Well, let me ask you this, though, sir. Do you feel that this would disqualify someone? I mean, obviously, Capitol Hill, you're going to have even more aggressive reporters.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to have tighter engagements with people. And if you've seen any of the national news people, actually, and this is a kind of national news reporter, you followed Trump around for quite a while.
Is, right, yeah.
There is a sense that you need to have a temper for the job, right?
Oh, sure, yeah. And on your demeanor in the house and the public property and everything. And you also have to conduct yourself in a professional manner as a journalist.
Let me ask you this, Pete. Do you think this disqualifies Mr. Gianforte from being our congressman?
Not at all.
Okay. All right. We got to run. Thanks for the call. We have one line open, 721-1290. All right. Who's up next? Brad, you're on Talkback. Hi.
Hey. I already voted for Gianforte, but I think that was harassment on the part of the reporter, and I don't think his reaction was appropriate as it's been spun, but I'd like to hear from Gianforte campaign and see how it actually happened.
Well, we have reached out.
It sounds like it's been spinning.
Yeah, we have reached out to the Gianforte campaign and asked them to call in this morning, but obviously our lines are full. If they do call, we'll get them on right away and try to get their take on it.
Well, I do have their official take. And, in lieu of having them call in, which, since our lines are full, looks like it's probably not going to happen very easily.
Yeah. Okay.
I will read for you what Shane Scanlon emailed. By the way, Shane is, and the thing that's really interesting about this whole story is we talk to all these people all the time.
Right.
If you've listened to Talkback, you've talked to Greg probably.
Thanks, Brian.
This is what they write. They say, tonight, as Greg was giving a separate interview in a private office, the Guardian's Ben Jacobs entered the office without permission, aggressively shoved a recorder in Greg's face, and began asking badgering questions. Jacobs was asked to leave. After asking Jacobs to lower the recorder, Jacobs declined. Greg then attempted to grab the phone and was pushed in his face. Jacobs grabbed Greg's wrist and spun away from Greg, pushing them both to the ground. And that's the big difference here. Other people say that Greg grabbed Jacobs by the neck, and I say more than just Jacobs. There was a Fox team there as well that says this, that Greg grabbed Jacobs by the neck and threw him on the ground. And Shane says that...
And punched him, supposedly.
Yeah, and Shane says that Jacobs grabbed Greg's wrist and spun away from Greg, pushing them both to the ground. It's unfortunate that this aggressive behavior from a liberal journalist created this scene at our campaign volunteer barbecue.
Now, if you've got a couple of Fox reporters right there, don't they have cameras? I mean, this is a national Fox News team.
Well, the cameras were not apparently on, but they did have a statement about what happened, which I'll read in a second. But first, I really think it's important, Peter, before we get too far, if you haven't heard it yet, if you could just play the clip. This is Jacobs' own recording of what happened.
This is the audio of what happened last night. So here you go.
Into the CBO score, because you know you were waiting to make your decision about healthcare until you saw the bill and it just came out. And what you
we'll talk to you about that later.
Yeah, but there's not going to be time. I'm just curious if you have the
speak with Shane, please.
But you don't.
Sick and tired of you guys. The last guy that came in here, you did the same thing. Get the hell out of here. Get the hell out of here. The last guy did the same thing. You were the guardian?
Yes, and you just broke my glasses.
The last guy did the same damn thing.
You just body slammed me and broke my glasses.
Get the hell out of here.
If you'd like me to get the hot up here, I'd also like to call the police.
Okay, and the police, Sheriff Gutkin of Gallatin County has issued a misdemeanor assault citation for Mr. Gianforte.
And so here's the thing that's really, at this point, right, if you've just heard Shane and you've heard Mr. Jacobs, it could be any way. But the thing that really sets it apart for me is what the Fox people said that watched this happen.
Okay.
And I'm just going to read what they said. They said, as part of our preparation for a story about Thursday's special election to air on Special Report with Brett Baer, we arranged interviews with the two top candidates, Republican Greg Gianforte and Democrat Rob Quist. On Wednesday, I joined field producer Faith Mangan and photographer Keith Raley in Bozeman for our scheduled interview with Gianforte, which was to take place at the Gianforte for Congress Bozeman headquarters. Faith, Keith, and I arrived early to set up for the interview in a room adjacent to a room where a volunteer barbecue was to take place. As the time for the interview neared, Greg Gianforte came into the room. We exchanged pleasantries and made small talk about restaurants in Bozeman. During that conversation, another man, who we now know as Ben Jacobs of The Guardian, walked into the room with a voice recorder, put it up to Gianforte's face, and began asking if he had a response to the newly released Congressional Budget Office report on the American Health Care Act. Gianforte told him he would get to him later. Jacobs persisted with his question. Gianforte told him to talk to his press guy, Shane Scanlon. And now you can hear, this is what kind of played out on the audio here.
Right.
At that point, Gianforte grabbed Jacobs by the neck with both hands, slammed him into the ground behind him. Faith, Keith, and I watched in disbelief as Gianforte then began punching the reporter. As Gianforte moved on top of Jacobs, he began yelling something to the effect of, "I'm sick and tired of this." Jacobs scrambled to his knees and said something about his glasses being broken. He asked Faith, Keith, and myself for our names. In shock, we did not answer. Jacobs then said he wanted the police called and wanted to leave. Gianforte looked at the three of us and repeatedly apologized. At that point, I told him and Scanlon, who was there, that we needed a moment, and then the men left.
Okay, so that's what we have. Actually, we're up against our first break. So Tom, Brian, David, and Mark, we'll hear from you in a moment. We really want to hear from some women as well. I know that this may affect you differently than it does men. I don't know. Or if you can't get through, please make your views known on our Facebook page. We want to hear from everybody. We'll be right back. All right, we're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number.
We have a ton of Facebook, so I'm going to try to do one Facebook and then a call and then a Facebook.
Go ahead.
So we're starting off with Joy. She says, I asked, is this going to change your vote?
Right.
Would you change your vote? And Joy said, absolutely not. I'm still voting for him. Daria looked at our photo in which Peter and I are both choking each other and said that's funny. So there's that. All right, let's go to callers.
All right, Tom, thanks for holding. You're on Talkback. Go ahead.
Peter, you're always a courteous man. You're polite on the radio. That's all I know of you. And I don't expect that you would ever shove a microphone or push your weight around to anyone. That's courtesy. And in the audio, Gianforte saying you've done this before or last time, something along that effect.
I think he said, "Are you from The Guardian? They did this the last time." Yeah, you did pick that up on the audio as well.
Yeah, anybody can only take so much before they fight back, snap, what have you.
Well, you know what's interesting, Tom, is that people forget Greg Gianforte has gone through one very long statewide campaign, and then this very short, very intense congressional campaign in less than a year.
Yeah.
So you can imagine the pressure that's on this guy. He probably has had enough of reporters.
At a certain point, though, you don't extend that kind of.
Aren't there laws against the paparazzi abusing people?
In Europe, maybe. I don't know if there are here.
I think it's a state-based thing.
I thought that, like the Hollywood people, they get tired of being harassed also. So.
Well, here's the thing. If you see actual trespassing charges, that could be possible, like if breaking and entering. I mean, if he's really doing what Greg's accusing him of here, there could be other charges. I don't know.
I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't either, because a candidate doesn't really want to get involved in that. Exactly. It just prolongs it.
Hey, Tom, we'll get some other callers. Okay,
all right,
thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Go ahead.
Real quick, for Facebook, Randy says, what I would like is for those that are either trying to explain away or excuse Gianforte's behavior to just be honest. You're okay with physically assaulting members of the free press if they ask uncomfortable questions, plain and simple. I saw a billboard for the Republican Party in Hamilton yesterday. It said freedom, family, and faith. They either denounce their candidate, especially since he lied about what happened, or just admit they are not about any of those things that they bragged about on their billboard.
Okay, so line 3 there. Let's get David on the line. David, thanks for holding. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, thanks, guys. I think Tom was right on the money, right, kind of along the lines of what I was going to say, because I just can't imagine Peter forcing his way into Pelosi's office and acting in the same manner. And so I think there's a double standard depending on the character of the individual reporter.
Well, David, I think that's one of the reasons why someone like him is working for the Guardian, where someone like me works for a small town a radio station. And let me tell you why that's important. Okay, this is a small town. All right. If I were to walk around, trying to throw my whatever weight I had around and pretending like I had some special access to whomever it might be, I would be out of a job in a week. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I'll tell you what happens in small towns. The dangerous thing here is that the candidates won't talk to you. This is something, sadly, we've had happen with Rob Quist. He would come on the air before he got, through the primary process.
Sanitized, yeah.
And now he won't talk on open phones anymore, or hasn't been willing to even respond to email requests to do so.
Yeah.
Same thing with your mayor. Won't come on, talk back, and take questions. It's the problem with being nice sometimes is that you don't get that interview.
Yeah.
Well, and honestly, I don't think the press is that disrespectful to the folks that have the same views that they have, if you will.
Yeah.
Let's call it liberal or whatever you want to call it. And when because I haven't seen a single conservative reporter treat a liberal politician in that manner.
Oh, I have. I remember that one guy that followed around the head of the IRS and videotaped her as she was walking down the street and then into her house.
Yeah.
So it definitely happens on both sides. Thanks for your call.
That's good.
Yeah.
And just real quick, you guys. I think that my vote is going to be along the lines of the of what the party is able to do for the country, as opposed to the man, because men are fallible.
All right.
But I just don't believe the parties.
Okay, we got to run. Thanks for the call. I'm sorry to cut you off. Mark, you're on Talkback. Go ahead, sir.
Okay.
Mark, got to turn your radio down.
Mark's
buddy.
coming to us from the moon, apparently.
I'll get it.
Go ahead. Hello. How you doing, Mark? Mark. Good to talk to you. What's up? Up. Go ahead.
Peter,
yes,
don't get in my face.
Well, there has an off button, Go ahead.
First of all, go Greg. All right. I'm still voting for him. I think you did a great job, frankly. Some of the reporters are just completely out of line. And there's a whole bunch of folks that I know that we've been discussing this. And in support of Greg, they're going to go into the polling places playing Rocky on their phones.
All right. Thanks for the call. That's very interesting. Go ahead.
Catherine says, I asked if you would change your vote, right? Claire said, I voted for Wicks, and I'm glad I did. By the way, there is a Libertarian candidate in the race.
And several write-ins. You could
and I bet you this does maybe change some votes the last day. Yeah. Catherine says, no, the reporter barged in on a private interview, and he was asked to leave repeatedly before the altercation and just kept shoving his phone and agenda in Greg's face per witnesses who were there. He broke the barriers of personal space. We need someone who won't back down and cave to those attempting to intimidate.
All right, let's get Katie on the line before we take our next break. Katie, go ahead, please.
Well, I think I'm going to mirror a little bit what you quoted from Catherine. You know, as a woman, of course, I'm very, in favor of discouraging any kind of physical. I really don't like reports of political candidates, hiring people to go and protest and, start riots and.
Well, I honestly believe that this was a dream come true for this reporter, because now not only can he sue Greg Gianforte for God knows how many millions of dollars for whatever damage, but he is now the hero of the journalistic world, because he is the ultimate victim with a capital V.
Well, I don't think that that's true, because I think there's a lot of people who are going to say he was out of line, and personally, I like the fact that Gianforte defended himself. He didn't stew about it. He didn't, wait until later and get back at him. He took care of business.
Okay.
And he immediately apologized to the Fox reporters that were right there.
Yeah. What do you think of the... I understand, like, throwing someone, and to be honest, in my life, I have thrown someone that spit on my head. In anger, I got really mad, and I threw them. Okay? I'm not happy about it or proud about it. Although at the time, I did feel like a real man, right? But let me ask you this. After that, he starts apparently punching, according to the Fox reporter, the guy on the ground. That's a step beyond, isn't it?
I kind of think what Fred Thomas said. He said, I'm going to vote for him. He's the right candidate, and he's a human.
All right.
And he pulled it back. He recollected. He didn't, try to make excuses or anything. He just apologized to the reporters that were there. And I thought about it overnight, and I thought, you know what? Let's send this cowboy to Washington.
Oh. Well, the person he needs to apologize to is the guy that he threw on the ground.
And Mr. Jacobs probably will never see him again. So anyway, Rob, Carol, and Elena, and we have a line open, 721-1290. We'll be right back. And we're back on Talkback. Go ahead. We have a Facebook
real
post.
quick. It's this is actually from Predict It. You remember the story you did about the odds being 80-20?
Right.
Well, the people betting on this race dropped their amount of money that they're putting into Greg. So it's now just 61-41 odds in favor of Greg Gianforte.
Okay.
So let's go to calls.
Very interesting. All right. Rob's up next. Rob, go ahead, sir.
Hello. Hey, thanks for taking my call. Long-time listener, first-time caller. I've been listening to the previous callers and have given this a lot of thought in the last 4 hours since I've been up. And, I'm just really, I know Greg has had a real rough run at things, has been in the political landscape for a year and was probably really devastated by the gubernatorial election and results of that. And I really vacillated on who I was going to vote for, honestly. Haven't voted. For me, absolutely, and it wouldn't matter what party this individual was representing. For me, it's kind of a deal breaker when physical attacks are what you parlay to when you're confronted with a journalist. And obviously it sounds like this guy went through a back door to get asked a question. That's sort of what journalists often are forced to do, maybe not in Missoula, Montana, but on a national level particularly. They're asked to go to ask uncomfortable things and go to extremes to get those answers. And so obviously everyone snaps, but
I hate to hurry you along. We got to get your comment. We got other callers. Real quick, go. Are you going to vote for him or not?
He said no.
I am not, and I really think we shouldn't as a state.
So where did you go to?
Right. I'm sorry.
Oh, he let go. Okay.
Sorry. I got to get a couple more callers in. We have 1 minute left. So, Carol, you're on Talkback. Go ahead.
Yes, my comment is that from everything that you have presented and that I have listened to, the so-called eyewitness report from whoever was Fox people does not seem consistent with the audio. I don't see how there was time for Gianforte to be punching the person. Also, according to the audio, the man who was supposedly assaulted said that Greg Gianforte body slammed him, not punched him or hit him, and then also said after that he was going to call the cops. That is not consistent with the Fox News report, that he turned to them and asked them if they would be witnesses and then talked about calling the cops. It's just not consistent.
Carol, thanks for the call. We are out of time for this segment. We will be back. Stay with us. Okay, we are continuing our conversation. Mark Thane, bless his heart, is very graciously stepping aside for a moment.
We body checked him a little bit, but he has decided to yield and let your calls come through,
all right,
as well as your Facebook posts.
You got a Facebook post there?
Sure, I've got a couple. Susie says, really good Christian behavior. I think she's being a little satirical here. If this is how he handles a reporter in Montana, D.C. is much different. I knew this wouldn't change your callers' minds. I always thought Greg Gianforte had a short fuse. Now I know I'm right. He should not be representing Montana.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Sue. Appreciate that. And Elena, you're on Talkback. Go ahead.
Thanks for holding us over. You're probably going to know who I'm voting for, right?
I imagine
Mark Wicks would be my guess.
Pardon?
I said Mark Wicks would be my guess.
Well, you're right. And, if everybody will say you're wasting your vote on a third party, I don't think today, and in a situation like this, they keep telling us to make our voices heard. Well, I am. I and a lot of other people are fed up with both parties, both the anointed parties. And we're going to make our voices heard. Now, chances are Mark won't get elected. But if he makes a good showing at the polls, our voices will be heard, that we're tired of these two parties that are on opposite sides of the same coin. So that's where I stand, and I've heard a lot of other people are saying the same.
Elena, thanks for the call. Appreciate that. Howard, you're on Talkback. Go ahead.
Yes. This is one of the greatest things that I've heard for the Republican Party, and I just got to thank Gianforte. We need to stand up. It's what we need to do in voting for Gene. If I had
you mean for Greg Gianforte?
Excuse me,
okay,
for
yeah.
Greg.
Okay, yeah.
Let's get it right.
Okay.
Anyway, I'd change my vote and vote for Greg.
Okay.
Wait, what was your vote before?
I was for Greg.
Oh, so you went from Greg to Greg.
There you go.
All right. So Greg squared. All right, let's...
So I just really want to throw this out here. Like, there's this whole theme that violence is okay for some people. And I guess the question is, does this change that meme or further it if you think that one political group is more violent than the other? Of course, during the Trump campaign, right, this popped up all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Right? There's going to be the violence at the rally. I don't know why people just ignored all the violence during the protest, but, there's violence definitely in America. And if you put someone like this on a pedestal, does it further that message? I think so, unless Greg does do a public apology.
Unless there's a double standard. And it's okay for people, it's okay for people who don't like Donald Trump to beat people up and burn cars and riot. In other words, that's okay. We're not going to say anything about it, but you get a conservative who manhandles a reporter. Well, that's the end of the world. So anyway, just a little bit of a double standard there, in my humble opinion. All right, so Nathan, you're up next. Good morning. You're on Talkback.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. My first comment, and two things I wanted to say. First one is I'm disappointed in the absentee ballot that my wife and I filled out, because I think my wife and I would love to revisit this whole idea. At this point, it's a moot point. We already voted for Greg Gianforte, and it would have been nice to actually do a lot more research, but at this point, nothing that I can research is going to help my vote. But I also think that the state of Montana is missing it by a mile. What we should do is we should completely drop this voting process and go right to, Thursday, WrestleMania. And, your vote will get you a seat, but you will only need the edge.
Right.
And just go to whoever can drop whoever. I mean, immediate. First one on the floor is the loser. And then whoever wins, that one immediately faces the Libertarian, and they just, go at it. And, whoever's left standing on the mat, it might be Gianforte. It might be one of us guys. Whoever's the strongest, we'll just go back to caveman things. Whoever's the strongest.
Well, the chair of the Democratic Party, please throw the actual chair into the ring.
Thanks for the call, David. All right, so we got another Facebook post there?
Sure, let's go to Kathy says, no, I'm still voting for Mark Wicks. Mitch says, journalists feel it's okay to invade people's space. I don't blame Mr. Gianforte, and Jupiter responded to that by saying, no one deserves to be physically assaulted for asking a simple question, uninvited or not.
All right, let's get to Alan on the line. Alan, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Yeah, good morning. One of the things I wanted to point out first was there's a whole lot of people who have already voted, so this whole thing may be a moot point. But the other thing is, old Jerry Clower, you remember him? He the philosopher, country philosopher.
Right.
He once was talking. This was mules, but we can change this into politics.
All right.
You got to treat them really kind, these political people really kind, these reporters really kind, but first you got to get their attention. Maybe Gianforte was just trying to get that guy's attention.
Alan, you know what? You should yield your voice for those real Montana voice radio ads, the political ads. I think that you have the right kind of raspy tone.
You have the right tenor in your voice there, Alan.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, it really hasn't changed my opinion. There was something that came out yesterday from Gary Marbett that kind of might change some people's opinions. It said that Rob Quest didn't register with Selective Service back in the 60s when he was supposed to. So, maybe he's a draft dodger.
All right. Well, thanks for the call. Appreciate it, Alan. All right. So let's get one more call in before we take a break. Cindy, you're on Talkback. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm just wondering if we could talk for a second about the inconsistencies between the Gianforte statement and the audio recordings which match the Fox reporter statement.
Okay.
The statement from Gianforte talks about shoving talks about Jacobs being asked to leave and asked to lower the recorder, and that's not on either the recording or the Fox reporter statements.
Okay.
So I think that.
So that gives you the option to believe whichever version you think has more veracity.
Right, but also their statement ends with saying that the aggressive behavior from a liberal journalist created the scene. And that's not true either.
Well, that's exactly what you would expect someone who is in charge of the press coverage for his candidate to say.
Well, okay. Unfortunately, if that's the level we're at, but I don't condone the guy coming in where he wasn't invited, but he should have been escorted out, not attacked.
Okay. Well, thanks for the call.
You bet. Bye.
Appreciate that. All right. So
Elena says on Facebook, unless Gianforte was physically attacked by this guy, he has no excuse for his actions. If it was a trap, he should have realized it when he started talking to the guy and subtly asked his staff to escort him out.
Yeah.
They keep telling us to vote, and make our voices heard. Well, I am. And then she goes on to talk about what she talked about on the air. Jay says, I'm still voting for Gianforte. Politically represents what I stand for. The climate of politics, that is an entirely different discussion.
Before we go to the break, let me just say one thing. If the Democratic Party and Rob Quist and Tina and all the folks involved in that campaign could have scripted something to happen the day before the election, this would be the perfect scenario. And it's like,
well, you kind of wanted it to happen 2 weeks ago.
How in the world could you possibly allow yourself to slip into that trap? Anyway, we're up against a break. Candy and Mark and Kimberly and Mark. And Mark, here in the studio. We might talk about the schools eventually. We'll be right back. Okay, we are back on Talkback. And by the way, our kudos to our friend Mark Thane, the superintendent of School District 1, who's got his headphones on. He's enjoying this as much as you guys are. So eventually we might get a chance to talk about
He's our referee.
Yes, he is. Anyway, let's move on and get Candy on the line. Candy, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Yeah, Peter, you stole my thunder. I agree with your scenario and feel that if that reporter was that close to Gianforte, he was in his personal space and had every right to get him out of it. Maybe he overreacted, and
hold on. Allow me to say that I never said that what Mr. Gianforte did with this reporter was the least bit appropriate. It was the wrong thing to do. I understand why he did it, but I still think it was the wrong thing to do because it was politically incredibly damaging.
Let me read this. This is maybe similar to what Peter says. Right. Tim says, "I'm still voting for him. He did not act professional. However, he acted human and represents Montana."
So,
I agree, and I agree with you, Peter, that to pick the timing of this, and if he was in his personal space and he was trying to get him away, he had to have been close enough for Gianforte to reach out to him in that manner, and he was invading his space, and John and I are going to still vote for him.
All right, thanks for the call, Candy.
Let me ask you this, Peter. What if the tables were turned a little bit, and this wasn't a conservative politician from Montana?
Right.
What if this was a young, beautiful actress from Hollywood?
Right.
And a reporter kept shoving the microphone in her face, and video camera caught the girl throwing him on the ground and hitting him? I honestly think people would be praising her for acting bravely and responding to this aggressive guy in such a physical way.
All right, let's continue on. Mark, thanks for holding. You're on Talkback. Go ahead, please.
Hi.
Hi, Mark.
Yes. Hi, guys.
Go ahead.
I'm not changing my vote, and I voted earlier at the polling place. But I want to bring up one fact, and it goes against the Rob Quist campaign, where they said he's not a true Montanan. He's from Jersey. Well, if he's from Jersey, then Guino and Sal would have got rid of that reporter for him.
Okay. All right. Thanks for the call. There is that. Okay. So obviously, New Jersey, thinking a little bit of Sopranos going on there. But let's go to Kimberly. Kimberly, thanks for holding. You're on Talkback. Go ahead. Hello? Whoops. Have we lost Kimberly? Okay, so let's try.
Are you sure you pushed the button down?
I did, but there's nobody on line 4 right now. So
okay.
Let's go to Mark. Mark, you're on Talkback. Hi.
Hey.
You're on.
Am I on?
You're on.
Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, there were like 3 Marks.
That's true. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm voting today. I always vote on election day, so I don't have to worry about changing my mind or my ballot.
All right.
And I was at work last night, and we talked about this at the end of shift, and everybody I know was like, well, too bad he didn't body slam Quist. So I don't think this has hurt him at all.
Okay.
The people that don't know who they're going to vote for.
Well, hold on a second, Mark. Do I hear you saying that this physical altercation is actually enhancing Gianforte's image in some people's minds?
You bet.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
You got to grow up as a man, right?
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for the call. Okay. Let's move on and get Nadine on the line. Good morning, Nadine. How are you?
Good morning, John, and
Peter.
Yeah, the other guy.
Peter,
Go ahead. Yeah.
Peter, the other guy.
The anchor of our newscast. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to. I certainly have already voted. My husband and I both voted for Greg. We've been a supporter of the Republicans in the state and nationally. And I just wanted to say that after reviewing the national news, Drudge, Alex Jones, and all of them online last evening and this morning, I really feel, even though I don't condone what Greg did, I feel this was a total Democratic setup. This guy was sent there to cause this kind of creation with Greg.
Well, now, just hold on for just a second. Let me just. I'm going to present a scenario here, okay? And when you are a reporter, especially a national reporter, and you're recovering a very important, a highly visible race, and you walk into this closed room uninvited, begin to forcefully, try to get a story, I actually think, and again, this is just me. Okay, now you can tell I didn't go to journalism school, so I don't know what the proper thing to do is. All I know is the way I conduct an interview is when I talk to an individual, whether it's a politician, whatever, I ask permission first. May I interview you at this time? And if they say yes, I go ahead with it. If they don't, I say, then may I make an appointment later? Okay. Now, this individual did not do that. All right. So I'm wondering if maybe one of his intentions was, gee, if my dreams come true, maybe he'll physically try to hurt me. You know what I mean? And so again, that could be beyond the pale. But I'm wondering if that wasn't part of the deal.
Well,
again, I could be completely wrong. I could be completely wrong about that. Go ahead.
In trying to think this through myself, I really feel that the Democrats, the tempers are running so high, both statewide and nationally, over Trump and the whole election, that this is possibly a setup. And I really believe that it should be brought out in the news.
Okay.
And that's all I need to say.
Right. Well,
Thank you.
Thanks so much for your call. All right. So, how are we doing on Facebook?
We got a lot of them.
Okay, well, do one, then we'll take a break.
Okay, Jim says, no, if all of this is true, Greg Gianforte only proves that he's a human being after being badgered and assaulted by that mean reporter who invaded his safe space. I'm not even sure Quist is a real person under that big funny hat. His whole campaign reminds me of a cartoon caricature of a politician who's campaigning. It could be summed up as, quote, I'm not a millionaire. It's just cheesy.
Well, I remember when Rob Quist stood right here in our studio. He was a real guy. I mean, the things that he said about what he felt about national issues came from his heart, and the things that he honestly really believed. And even though I didn't agree with him, I appreciated and valued his passion for willing to stand up for what he believed in. Okay? I honored that. I thought that was great. Again, I didn't agree with him. But that doesn't matter. I mean, in the world of ideas, you get to have yours, I get to have mine, and then we get to go see, what people will buy. But then that changed to the point where you really couldn't get him in a one-on-one interview.
And now
anymore.
basically the topics are either you're talking about healthcare,
right,
or you're talking about public lands,
right.
And almost all the other topics that are on the table for a congressional candidate seem to be off the table.
That's it. Anyway, John, Steve, and Josephine, we're going to get you guys on in a moment.
And at the bottom of the hour, I promise we're talking to Mark Bain. No matter who's on the line.
Okay, we'll be right back. All right, we're back. This is Talkback, 721-1290. Got a couple of Facebook posts. Go ahead, John.
Ryan says what I think is probably true.
Okay.
He says things are so polarized now that I'm not sure much would change people's minds. If assaulting a member of the press doesn't change one's mind, I'm not sure much will.
Okay, let's move on and talk with John. John, thank you for holding, sir. You're on. Go ahead.
Good morning. I would just like to say, taking into consideration who got popped, a representative of The Guardian, which was an international red newspaper, basically as far left as you can go. And also, I'd just like to make one quick comment. If that punk would have stuck his recording machine in my face, he'd never be able to eat sweet corn again, okay?
Okay. All right, thanks for the call. Wow, okay. Steve, you're on Talkback.
Warning to all out-of-state reporters.
Yeah, hey, thanks a lot, you guys. In today's climate, I said, he doesn't have to have been physically attacked, meaning a Gianforte. All he has to really do is feel as though he was threatened. And in today's climate, that's acceptable, isn't it? And after all, it sounds to me like Mr. Jacobs has maybe invaded his space, his safe space. So I kind of think that maybe there should be a little consideration for some of that in today's climate. I mean, it is consistent.
Yes, and one of the things that John brought up was because he was not invited to come into that private party, would there possibly be any, repercussions from that for Mr. Jacobs?
I don't know.
Yeah.
By the way, I should
probably
bring this up. Some people are questioning Montana's justice because the county sheriff that was called in for this, Brian Goodkin,
right,
also happens to have donated $250 to Greg Gianforte's campaign.
Okay.
So that's kind of strange that a county sheriff would get that kind of. But this is a national story at this point.
It certainly is, and so every little jot and tittle will be uncovered, so to speak. Josephine, you're on Talkback. Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Josephine. Go ahead. You're on.
Oh,
Hi. Thank you for taking my call. And I have one simple comment.
All right.
Folks, get out and vote. It's voting day. Exercise your right to vote. This is the work of the Democrats and the liberals. They were suggesting that maybe Craig should get out of the race. You notice they didn't ask the Krispy Kreme to get out of the race. Anyway, that's it.
The Krispy Kreme. Who's the Krispy Kreme?
I don't know this metaphor.
Yeah, I don't know. I love Krispy Kreme. They're not very good for me, but I still love them.
I mean,
All right.
There's certainly politicians maybe that would fit that, but I'm not sure who she's referring to.
Tim, good morning. You're on Talkback. Hi.
Good morning, Peter. Oh, happy belated birthday, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Anyway, I'm over here in Billings, and it's just like, honestly, my vote's not going to change. I'm kind of playing in both hands because I'm kind of sick of reporters treating, especially conservatives, this way. And it's just like, because it seems like it happens to them and Republicans a lot more than Democrats, because it just, the other side has a real agenda. And to me, this is kind of like the perfect scenario for them to kind of say, oh, he's so horrible kind of a thing. But on the other hand, I'm not changing my vote. I'm going down to vote here in about an hour. And it's just like, I think Gianforte is when it comes to my decision, it's him or Rob Quist or the others. I'm still voting for Gianforte. It's not going to change my vote anyhow.
Speaking of the others, we actually have Mark Wicks on line 4. He called into the show this morning.
Let's get him on. Mark, good morning, sir. So how are you feeling this morning?
It's a weird morning. There's no doubt about that.
All right. Now, Mark, let me ask you this. You are the Libertarian candidate. If you had a private party and you were already engaged with reporters and somebody barged in and stuck a microphone in your face and wouldn't leave you alone, what would you have done?
Well, I definitely wouldn't have body slammed him.
Okay. All right.
The thing to do would have been just to walk away, just to turn and leave the situation. And I'm sure he's under a lot of stress. I know this gets pretty stressful, but I think it's been a long time since he's had any problem he couldn't solve with his money and lawyers, and he didn't know how to deal with the situation.
All right, Mark. Well, thanks for the call.
I appreciate. Yep, no problem.
All right, it's good to hear from you, and best of luck today.
And good luck today. Have a great election day.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mark. All right, take care. We're going to take one more call, and I don't know who's on line 1. But Dave, you're on Talkback. Go ahead, sir.
Hello?
Hello, Dave. Is this Dave?
Yes.
Dave, you're on. Go ahead, sir.
It don't sway my vote at all for Greg. I think it's who I would vote for, but is what I think that they're not talking about is if we don't elect him, we have another person in there that's majorly wanting to register all the guns, all of our guns. They done it in Australia, and then they lost their guns. And being a Montanan, I don't want to lose my guns is why I have to vote for Greg.
Okay. Well, thanks for the call. We appreciate that. All right. We have one more, and then we're going to take a break, and then we're going to talk with Mark.
And that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. The ref is calling the game.
All right. Let's get Kimberly. You're our last caller on this topic. Go ahead.
I'm just wondering how come no one's really asking about Quist and if he had anything to do with this. It'd be a grand political move.
Well, I will tell you that when contacted about this incident, Mr. Quist and his campaign manager, Tina, I can't remember her last name, anyway, they both said they are not commenting on this. They are leaving it up to law enforcement to do whatever law enforcement's going to do. However, there was a photo of them immediately following this, and both of them had the biggest smiles on their face you could possibly imagine. So anyway, just a little
my
perspective.
opinion that Mr. Jacobs has probably already been paid once.
Okay, all right. Well, thanks for the call. Of course, he does work for the Guardian newspaper. So anyway,
so the state can only they can only fine Greg, is my understanding, for a misdemeanor assault charge, $500.
Right, but.
What kind of civil lawsuit might occur after all this?
I really don't know because Mr. Gianforte, as you know, is a very wealthy man. He has helped to subsidize 2 of his own campaigns, to the $5 million, I believe, for the gubernatorial campaign, at least $1 million for the congressional campaign. So there you go.
But it's not based on how much money you have, right? I don't know how justice works necessarily when it comes to being rich, because I've never been there. But I don't think that they like, oh, you had this minor incident and he happens to be a millionaire, so you get this much more payout. I don't think the scales work that way.
Do you have naive on your forehead here? Is that?
Yeah. In fact, in my world, the one I keep watching,
right?
Usually really wealthy people get off without having to pay much.
Well, we'll see. But with such a public incident like this, there's no denying that it happened. So anyway, we're going to take a break and come back and talk about our schools, because our superintendent, with the emphasis on super, is going to be with us in just a moment. So stay with us.